Welcome back, Web3 TV. I'm Cristina Najera, and we are at the Cardano Summit with Nikhil from Emurgo. How are you doing today?
Very well, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm very happy to have you here today. I would love to know more about you and your company.
Sure. So I work for a company called Emurgo. We are a co-founding entity of Cardano, and our job here is to really help commercial adoption happen. We are headquartered in Singapore. We have about 100 people working for us around the world. The concentration of that is in Southeast Asia, but with people in Europe and across North America as well.
Wow, very impressive, because one of the biggest problems in Web3 is the adoption. So how are you solving that?
So what we want to do is bring partnerships to the ecosystem where projects that are building on Cardano can work with those partners to bring more commercial activity happening. So we've done a few things this year. Examples are we worked with GSR, which is one of the biggest digital asset market makers, where if projects want help with listing their tokens and market making, GSR can do that. We worked with Huawei so that projects can have the option to house their nodes on Huawei's cloud as opposed to, say, someone else's cloud service. And it's just optionality. But at the same time, Huawei is a very, very significant Web2 company. It has interest in seeing where it can play within the Web3 space. So they also have their own internal investment arm, and they will look at projects that are building Cardano to see if there's a fit, and they will make investments. And we did, in fact, have an example of, within a few weeks of announcing this to the ecosystem, Huawei did, in fact, make an investment. And the last example I'll touch on is we recently announced that we were working with Antler. Antler is a huge startup incubator and accelerator. They are coincidentally also headquartered in Singapore, but they have presence in many countries around the world. So they run periodic residencies where startups who are, to date, they have mostly Web2, right? But the reason for this partnership is that we are bringing a Web3 angle to it. And so we will work with their own portfolio companies to see where is a Web3 angle here. Is Cardano part of that solution? How can we work together on that? But importantly for the Cardano ecosystem, they now have yet another means to access funding. So projects building on Cardano now have the option to go through Antler's process. If they meet Antler's criteria, then Antler will invest and they become part of that ecosystem as well. Right? But even if Antler chooses not to invest for whatever reason, they have their own portfolio companies and they will see how they can work together. So they ran a masterclass here yesterday, for example, and in that session, there was someone who was, I think from memory, building a kind of a provenance tracking solution. And Antler happens to have a number of agri-tech type of companies in their portfolio. So provenance, supply chain type of opportunities with agriculture is a very kind of intuitive match, right? So these are just examples of things that we've done to try and promote commercial activity within Cardano over this year.
Wow, I love that. You have done so much in these couple of years. And would you like to share how did you start your crypto journey?
Sure. So I come from a very traditional background. I was in investment banking for 16 years or so, initially in London, and then I moved to Singapore a number of years back. Shortly after I moved to Singapore, I realized I didn't really enjoy banking anymore. There was nothing new happening. It seemed quite a risk-averse environment for an industry that is, by definition, supposed to take risk. And so I started looking for other things, and I ultimately came across Bitcoin initially, as I think many people do, and then blockchain. And for me, there is some very, very resounding philosophical attributes, right, associated with crypto that I personally just enjoy thinking about. The idea of a geographical boundary, for example, doesn't make any sense to me. Like today's map, like several hundred years ago, did not look like this map, so it seems a bit arbitrary to me, but we all forge relationships in different ways, right? And so is there some kind of end point here where we do create this idea of a digital nation state, where you are not part of a nationality, should we say, just because you happen to have been born somewhere, but you can proactively choose how you belong and who you wish to engage with in a different way. So those sorts of ideas, which are quite abstract, but I enjoy playing with them in my head, right? As well as, of course, like the macroeconomic ideas of what cryptocurrency brings relative to the traditional way things work today, or rather don't work.
Yes, 100%. What I love about Web3 is the decentralization, and with that, I believe there is freedom. Can you explain if there is freedom with Web3?
I think, sure. I don't think freedom is binary, though, right? So I don't think you either have it or you don't have it. I think there is a big spectrum of what your particular freedom looks like, and that's for each person to decide for themselves. I think certainly Web3 offers a lot of opportunity that is otherwise quite difficult to crystallize in a traditionally Web2 world. And so a good common example, I think, is creator economy, being able to finance themselves in a more meaningful way, or to bring more equanimity between the creator and the consumer, should we say, of whatever that creation is, right? The other one I think is tokenization. Now, I think there is a little bit of a risk right now that tokenization just becomes a bit of a cliche and it becomes overused. I've now started referring to it as tokenitis, like when you're ill with tokenization, right? But what I mean with that is tokenization has utility, but for it to really take off, there needs to be more utility, I think, than just the liquidity and the settlement benefits that it brings. That might be okay in some cases, but I think in many others, people will want more than that. Like, for example, there's no point in taking an illiquid asset in the physical world and turning it into an illiquid asset in the digital world. Do you see what I mean? So there's got to be a demand for that thing. However, if you can get past that, and it will happen, I'm not saying that it won't, it will get there, but I think it'll be nuanced, more nuanced than what we're seeing right now, is that once you start tokenizing things, they become commoditized. Once things become commoditized, you can start using them in finance plays, right? So either lending that commoditized asset out or using it as collateral, and then, of course, synthetic products that go over the top of that, derivatives and that kind of thing. So I think we will start to see more of that, but I think it's not going to be good enough to say I'm just simply tokenizing something, be it physical or actually a true digital asset, right? I think there needs to be base utility, and then increasingly people will become more sophisticated in their appetite, and so then they will want something more, right? And that might be yield, but it might be something else, right?
Wow, it's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. We learned a lot from you today.
I like to talk, as you can see, but thank you for having me.
Yes, it was a pleasure, and thank you for watching. Remember to share this with your friends because everybody deserves to know more about Web3, AI, and cryptocurrency. I'm Cristina Najera. See you next time.